Chapter 5. Sacrifice. The sea flooded at the high tide, creating a pool of water. From the scattered fish bones, broken shells, and other strange debris, it looked as if Ferdinand had been using the church as his living quarters for some time. By mage light, it was cold and shadowy. Hubert wished the warmth of the lighthouse were closer. Sedith walked stiffly over once glossy tiles. He paused to stare up at the glass shards of green and gold, all that remained of a once great glass window. "You did this," he told Hubert, and this time he couldn't keep the loathing from his voice. A splash from Ferdinand as he surfaced. "It is not Hubert's fault. I was a fool." Sedith tore his eyes away from the ruin. "Yes, I suppose you are in quite the state as well." Ferdinand shrank back into the water. A tentacle or two thrashed against the tiles. "I only wanted to be like you." "I have the tome," Hubert said, eager to move the conversation on. Not because he was scared of confrontation, but because there were more pressing matters. "However, I am unfamiliar with these notation marks." The spell circle Ferdinand tried to copy bore only a resemblance to the ones used for dark magic. Presumably, the strange marks were for gestures, or perhaps a rhythm for the caster's breathing. Sedith's eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this book, Ferdinand?" "I found it." He hung his head. "No one else was using it. The church has been very empty for moons and moons." "This is old magic, not purely reason, not purely faith, but something in between. The spell to change one's form took years to conjure. Even highly skilled priests struggle to cast it correctly. I am not surprised at the predicament you find yourself in. You were lucky you did not lose your mind to it." Hubert remembered the transformed beasts used by their allies in the war. He did not regret the blood on his own hands. Every kill was a step closer to the Emperor's vision. But on his darkest nights, he wondered where the beasts came from. Who were they, before they lost their bodies and hearts and minds? If there was a chance Ferdinand could turn into a savage creature of destruction, Hubert wanted no part in it. "Perhaps we should not make a second attempt at such magic." "You want me to stay like this?" asked Ferdinand. "It is better than turning into a worse kind of monster." "That is not quite what I meant when I said lose your mind," Sedith said. "This spell does not require creststones, nor bloodshed of any kind. It requires only the faith and reason of the caster. However, the toll it takes is a harsh one. It scrambles memories, muddles emotions." "Muddles emotions," Hubert said flatly. "I love you, Hubert." Now, it all made sense. "I am not muddled," Ferdinand protested. "The only thing wrong is I am supposed to have 2 legs, not 8. "Why did you not ask us for help?" asked Sedith. "Did it not occur to you that perhaps Flane and I might know a thing or two about an old book found in the church?" "You said to stay away from the church." "Yes, because if people like him saw you, you'd be executed for your belief in the goddess." Hubert flinched. "You would accuse me of slaughtering civilians? The only one who has done such a thing is your former archbishop, who set fire to a city. It is not the faith we take issue with. I do not condone Rhea's actions. She was driven to desperation. Our kind is all but dead. Your allies are no more. They paid for what they did to the Resfeld children." The lines between Sedith's eyes deepened. Hubert couldn't read his expression. "I do not know what either of you are talking about," complained Ferdinand. "Are you going to help me or not? I'm sure I could cast the spell again with no ill effect. I just need to know how." "You should be with your own kind," said Sedith. "You may come to regret leaving them later on. Whatever disagreements you have may yet be resolved. I am hardly going to agree to the pod eating my liver, nor do I wish to start eating a diet of freshly shipwrecked humans. No, I want to go with Hubert to Enbarr." Sedith raised his eyebrows. and turned to Hubert. "It is not the world you have dreamt up from the papers. It is full of crooks and cheats, liars and assassins. For every honest man, there are 3 dishonest ones trying to pick his pocket. I know the sea is not kind, but you understand it. You cannot protect yourself from a world you know nothing about." Ferdinand only looked more determined. "Protect me, then. Stay by my side, and make sure no harm comes to me. I have already learned much from you, Hubert." Hubert made the mistake of thinking about it. Ferdinand waiting for him after meetings. Ferdinand sipping tea. Ferdinand in his arms, and in his bed, and the sea salt taste of his skin. That wasn't real life. Real life was ink-stained fingers, endless dirty coffee cups, and calculating how quickly someone could kill Edelgard in each of her new dresses. He saw Ferdinand sitting alone, in his sparsely decorated apartment, an undrunk cup of coffee going cold on the counter. He imagined Ferdinand's disappointment once he realized Hubert could only dance a stiff waltz, even after a shot or 2 of whiskey. Then there were the tabloids. He did not want to imagine what they'd write about a man bedding the ghastly Marquis Vestra. Not to mention all the enemies Hubert had made, seeking the opportunity to take anyone he loved to an early grave. Ferdinand deserved so much better. "I can offer you nothing. You were right. I should have never kissed you." It was one of the cruelest things he'd ever said, designed to deliver a fatal blow to impossible hopes and dreams. Hubert looked at the tome in his hands, looked at Ferdinand's exhausted, stricken face. Sedith growled, "You did what?" Enough of this ridiculousness. He closed his eyes, clutched the tome to his chest, and called dark magic. If the warp spell devoured his ailing body, so be it. He would deal with it on the other side. All he wanted was home. The sound of china shattering brought Hubert's world back into sharp focus. He hadn't meant to come here. Had he? The lighthouse's foghorn launched an all-new Oriole assault as he leant on the dining table and took deep, slow breaths. Dark magic pulsed below his skin, flicked light into his eyes, then released him. "Hubert, where have you been?" shrieked Flane. "Where is father?" "At church," said Hubert, still gasping. His wounds ached. "I really liked that cup," she grumbled. Flane fetched him a glass of water, pulled a chair behind his shaking legs for him to collapse into. How kind. If the Archbishop had been like her, maybe Edelgard would have been safe. Edelgard. How had he so thoroughly forgotten his purpose? Flane did not press him. She simply waited until he'd caught his breath, and then waited some more, while he explained the whole mess, minus the kissing, from beginning to end. The tome remained firmly in his grasp. "Drink your water," said Flane, ever the bossy nurse. Then, "You should not feel so responsible. Ferdinand has other reasons to leave the sea behind him. He wanted to change for a long time." "What reasons? He has never been to Enbarr." "I believe Ferdinand lived on the Ire coast at one time. Perhaps Enbarr is something of a legend to him. That is my impression, at least." "Sedith says the spell muddles emotions and memories. It sounds like too high a price to pay." "Yes, that is true. I think of Mother often. But I know there is much I have forgotten about her. It would be impossible to predict how the spell would affect Ferdinand. But perhaps he would forget things too." Hubert stared at her for a moment. "You were—" "It does not matter now," she said quickly. "You are not the first Ferdinand rescued, but he certainly seems to have taken a particular liking to you. Do you care about him?" "What kind of question is that? I've spent the last 3 weeks teaching him magic, have I not? Despite his impatience and poor attention span." "If you care about him, Maybe you should trust him to know his own mind. I trust he is the type to bite off more than he can chew, Hubert muttered, chasing down a pot of mers, attempting to learn the most dangerous form of magic, dragging strangers from the water and kissing them. Flame laughed. Get some sleep, she urged him. It is late into the night. Things will seem clearer in the morning. Hubert tried, but he could not settle. He felt like the tome was looking at him from the bedside table. What would Ferdinand be doing now? Surely Sedith wouldn't have left him alone in such a state. Maybe he'd bundle Ferdinand into his boat and haul him back to the lighthouse. The thought was surprisingly comforting. There was so much they didn't know about each other. The time they spent together felt as if it existed apart from the rest of the world. They'd been in a bubble, one destined to burst with Hubert's inevitable departure. Neither of them had wanted it in the end. Hubert's efforts to hold on longer had consisted of one ill-timed kiss, an effort to make the best of what they had left. Meanwhile, Ferdinand had tried to change his entire body for a more permanent solution. They both wanted the same thing, more time. But if Ferdinand wanted to risk the spell and change, it shouldn't be because of Hubert. Therefore, there was only one course of action he could take. In the early hours of the morning, after the fog cleared, Hubert strolled to the field where Flame kept her horse. From the crest of the hill, he saw the ruined church rising, ghost-like from the water. The sound of a mournful song, the most heart-wrenching yet, drifted in on the wind. Hubert turned inland, towards Enbarr. He did not look back. The tome he left near the lighthouse, where Ferdinand could reach it.